As a new strain of COVID-19 begins to spread across the country, a number of institutions, including city governments, hospitals, schools, and even Hollywood studios, are reviving mask mandates. The latest data from the CDC shows an 18.8% week-over-week increase in cases. With the school year starting or having already started, the uptick is raising a number of questions. Specifically, how will the virus affect classroom learning? And here to help answer those questions is Julie Gunlock, director of the Independent Women's Forum. Julie, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Given this information, how big of a concern do you think mask mandates and potentially school closures will be this year?
Look, I think this is a big concern, and parents need to be aware that this could happen. We know that the teachers' unions are eager to close schools, to put in mask mandates, and they have strong allies, not only the president, but the heads of the FDA, the heads of the CDC. And we know that the teachers' unions influenced those agencies to delay the opening of schools and to extend masking of children. It could happen again. We're already seeing this in some institutions. For instance, at the university level, there have been some very restrictive COVID mandates put in place. We're seeing it in business. We're even seeing it in a Hollywood studio. So this is happening again, and parents especially need to be aware that the learning loss that occurred the last time they closed schools, it can't happen again.
Yeah, we've already seen school districts in Kentucky and actually one in Texas already shut down this year due to COVID cases and teachers. You know, what's your take on these actions? Do you think this is an overreaction?
Absolutely. Look, we are even seeing it from the White House. They issued a statement saying that Jill Biden has COVID. It is not necessary to issue a press statement about Jill Biden's COVID status. This pandemic is over. We have moved on. And what we're seeing now is a stoking of the fear that people have naturally of COVID. But we're seeing a little bit of stoking of that fear, of reminding people that, oh, this could be a disaster. This could all happen again. And again, there's a reason for that. It's control. So we have to be prepared for that. We have to write our legislatures. We have to write our policymakers and let them know that this can't happen again.
Yeah. What about the teachers union? I mean, how big of a role do you think they're going to play in all of this in the decision-making process? Enormous. Again, they are the ones who sent a letter to DOJ asking the Department of Justice to investigate parents who went to school board meetings and complained about the school closures and about the masking. They are enormously influential. And again, we know that they influenced the FDA and the CDC to extend masking the last time around. So the teachers union, it's not only that. Let's not forget, the teachers union even managed to get teachers to the front of the line for vaccines, even above elderly. They also used the COVID sort of disaster and closures in order to get more money, most of which that COVID funding has not even been spent. So we really do have to worry about the teachers unions. I think it's really important, too, to say that the teachers union, this is Randy Weingarten, right? These are very powerful unions. They create and nurture a culture of silence among not only parents, but teachers. There are a lot of well-meaning, wonderful teachers out there that don't want schools closed. So when I talk about we have to be careful about the teachers unions, it really is the unions. I think there are a lot of very concerned teachers out there who don't feel like they can speak out. Oh, Julie, I want to pivot to something else right now that's been in the news. There are reports in Canada that an excavation of suspected mass graves of Indigenous children in residential schools have actually turned up no human remains. Back in 2021, there were claims that thousands of children were buried there, and the Catholic Church did run several of those residential schools. And Pope Francis, as we know, even issued a formal apology. Julie, what do you make of all this?
Yeah, well, it's turned out that they are not finding human remains on the cited land where these Catholic schools existed. And this is a really horrible story. Look, there's no doubt that the Pope was very upfront, apologizing for any abuse that the Catholic Church might have had a role in. But this idea that there are these mass graves that were created by these Catholic churches and the faculty and administration of these Catholic churches, this appears to not be true. But it was even before they started the dig and they started to look for any evidence, this became sort of fact. You had Prime Minister Justin Trudeau basically saying, this is terrible. This is a terrible thing that happened, and sort of smearing the Catholic Church, and that he wasn't. I mean, one very very important Canadian official named Harsha Wale, the head of the British Columbia Civil Liberties Association, said, "Burn it all down," and she meant the Catholic Church. And as a result, there was vandalism and even the burning up to the ground of some Catholic churches. So this became a moral panic and hysteria. And again, this all happened before there was any evidence. And now it turns out, after doing the work to look for evidence of these mass graves, there's no evidence of human remains there. So it's a horrible episode. And I really do think that some of the leading Canadian politicians are responsible, not to mention the Canadian media, which again stoked this moral panic.
Yeah, we're going to continue to follow this story. We know you will as well. Julie, thank you so much for coming on. Always appreciate your insights.